how way, ay, 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 ay. How we up, how we up, ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. How way, ay, 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 ay. How way, ay, 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 ay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we are triple casting tonight with Real Liberty Media and People's Internet Radio. So welcome, everybody, and thank you, everyone, for listening. We have a really awesome show tonight. In the second hour, I'm going to talk to a filmmaker who is making a film about police brutality and police corruption based on an experience that he had in Las Vegas. His name is Ramsey Dennison, so stay tuned for that. But before we get to him, I am welcoming back our very good friend at The Bridge with Kira from Occupy Corporatism. Welcome to The Bridge, Susanne Posel.
Thank you for having me.
What a week we've had. This morning over breakfast, my husband and I were giggling while listening to your show. There's just a lot of material there. It's the news is rich with sources of material for your show, and it's hilarious.
I love the fact that there is so much material. I'm just upset about the cost of it, which is our democracy.
Yeah, that's a big cost, isn't it? But I think
it really is.
We've been going down this road for a while, and now we're really seeing the death throes in full force. It's no more cover, no more veil over it. It's just in your face.
Well, you know what I find encouraging? The silver lining in all of this is that 2/3 of the American population woke up. They march in the streets. They call their congressmen. They harass them at town halls. If their congressmen or their senators don't show up at town halls, they put their faces on milk cartons. They have 5 or 6 foot cardboard cutouts of them and hold the town hall without them. I think it was Paul Ryan was leaving an event a couple of days ago, and he, as he was leaving, was booed. And I don't think he understood that he was being booed because he turned around and waved, and everyone told him to F off. And I thought that was hilarious.
That is hilarious. I've wanted to tell him that for a long time myself.
Absolutely. I think he should go back to impersonating Eddie Munster and, leave our government alone. And I think what's going to happen, in fact, I was watching a show the other night, and the woman who put together the Women's March was on. She was being interviewed, and she explained that there is a massive movement underground. The Indivisible Guide has morphed into indivisible groups all over the country. We're talking about thousands of groups in your city, in your town, in your district. Go to Google Indivisible Guide, sign up, and join. So what's happening is 2018 and any election, any special election, even your PTA meetings, even the people who run the PTA, we are replacing people who do not agree that the United States is a free country that is governed by the Constitution and enforced by the Bill of Rights. Anyone who does not agree with that should not be a public servant. I think that it's unfortunate, but a two-party system, one party has proven that they care about their party over country. So I think that we should do them a favor and ourselves a favor and vote them into early retirement.
Well, I hope that something happens soon. I'm not sure that all that's going to... It seems like when people get really mobilized, it kind of mobilizes the forces of evil as well. So I guess we're in for a struggle here. But
sure.
More people are looking at it.
The performance artist formerly known as Alex Jones was just a couple of days ago telling his audience that the Democrats are authoritarians. and we have to take out the Democrats. And Donald Trump, well, he should go after all of his critics, just like he went after James Comey, just like he went after Sally Yates, like he went after Preet Bharara, just like he went after all the U.S. attorneys and fired them all at once.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about this Comey thing, because it's shades of Nixon, but it's also pretty unprecedented move on the part of a sitting president.
I wouldn't give the crazed circus peanut that much credit. I really wouldn't. I think what President Dunscap has done is what he always does. If you look back in the 80s when he was running his companies, his father, who helped him build Trump Tower, who was the first building that he ever built, helped him get to know who owns concrete in New York. And you can't buy concrete in New York back then without running through the mafia. So we all know that President Vagina Neck likes to watch a lot of TV. And he might be a fan of maybe The Sopranos, and maybe he binge watched it on Hulu one too many times. But he seems to think that he's got tapes. He's taping things, right? He's got tapes. He hopes that Comey doesn't leak anything to the press because he's got tapes. Well, I've got news for him. We already taped him. It's a law. It's actually a preservation law that states that everything that the president says and does has to be recorded and preserved for public record. So guess what? Those conversations, if he made them not from his Android, but from the office phone, which I think he's 2 oranges shy of a bunch, so he probably did, then there's a record of that. And there's already been talk of subpoenas being filed on Monday to get those records, to find out whether or not he did make the phone call through the Oval Office or any of the office phones, so we can get the transcripts and find out exactly what he said. Personally, I think he's bluffing, because that's what he does. That's all he's got. He's got smoke and mirrors, right? He's a game show host. What else does he have? What's behind curtain number 1? What's behind curtain number 2?
Yeah, and it's kind of an MO that we've seen before, but never to this extreme, never to this sort of obvious extreme, I guess. Maybe it had to be dumbed down. The whole psychopath in charge thing had to be dumbed down for people to actually see it. But I struggle with even watching any type of news. Like I will listen to your show, but I get so disturbed at watching the news that it's really hard for me to do that, because it's bad for my mental health.
Oh, I understand. If I didn't do this for a living, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I unplug and I'll just watch garbage television. I'll watch like Shark Tank. Not that I care, but just because I need to unfetter my brain from this stupidity. But at the same time, I think this move with Comey might be cause to maybe pop some popcorn, because I think he's gone too far. You can't fire the guy who's conducting an investigation against you. Yeah. You can't ask him out for dinner, and then when he allegedly asks about his 10-year tenure, by the way, he was only 4 years into it. He had a 10-year run. There was no reason for him to ask if he was going to keep his job. Traditionally, we don't fire the FBI director. The FBI director goes through from one president to another, because he's not supposed to be political. It's not supposed to be politicized.
Right.
But Donald Trump did the same thing that he always does in that Lester Holt interview, which when I saw it, my jaw dropped. The man admitted on national television that the reason why he fired James Comey was because of Russia. And then Sarah Huckabee goes out instead of Sean Spicer and says at the end of this press briefing, the afternoon of that, she says, well, we want to get this over with as quickly as possible, and we thought that by getting rid of the director that we would get to that conclusion faster. when you look up things not to say, those two things are very close to the top. You're not, when you're covering something up, you're not supposed to admit why you did it, because then we know it's a cover up. See, these people are not that smart. You know, these are low information voters who just so happen to be running the White House. That's all it is.
Well, that's what the rest of the agencies and institutions in Washington, D.C. look like. It's the low information butt kisser and flying monkey that's, you know, all the middle managers. That's really the White House looks exactly like every other agency in the government. That's what it looks like. Just like
what the White House looks like is if Monty Python did a skit about any one of the authoritarian dictators all over the world, it would be Donald Trump. It would be this administration. It's absolutely ridiculous, folks. We need to learn to think things all the way through. We need to learn to not make decisions on an emotional basis. We need to look at qualifications over putting unqualified people into positions, because this is what happens. Devin Nunes, that was like a Scooby-Doo episode. What was that? It was so, I mean, the man gets a call on his cell phone in the middle of the night. He jumps out of his car that he was with one of his staffers into an Uber and disappears, and then reappears with documents that just so happen to have been handed to him by staffers in the White House the night before. And it really didn't take that long for all of this to unravel, partially because they kind of led us to it by what they said about it, by what the White House statements were about it, by what the president said about it. It wasn't too difficult to figure that out. Obstruction of justice happened right there. But now we're finding out that obstruction of justice happened a couple of days after the president was inaugurated. And I really want to stress this point right here. If you listen to Sally Yates' testimony, what she explained was before she went to the White House on January 23rd, 3 days after the inauguration, Michael Flynn was interviewed by the FBI. Now, she went to the White House to tell them about Flynn on the 26th. But this dinner with Comey, excuse me, happened within the first week of this presidency. So did Donald Trump wait until after the 23rd, after Michael Flynn was interviewed by the FBI, to then ask Comey to dinner and ask whether or not he was being investigated?
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa. It's like scanners every single day.
Yeah, wow. And House of Cards kind of too, you know. There's always this edge of, well, is it evil or stupidity or both, or what's going on? Because it's so it's so outrageous. Like every possible weird thing that could happen. First, I mean, starting with him getting elected, it was like people were like, is this just a joke that went too far? Like, how is this possible? Like, I don't understand. It happened.
Oh, yeah. We were all, I think collectively as a country, we all were depressed. And everywhere you went, no matter where you were, at the grocery store, at the park, just at the stoplight, every time you looked at someone, they had the same sad look on their face. And you both nodded and understood for a moment what each other was feeling. It was bizarre. But to go back to your postulation about whether or not this is evil or stupidity, let me give you an example. I don't know if this answers your question, but I think it might at least be something to chew on. During the campaign, he went on and on about China being a currency manipulator, right? And then all of a sudden, he says, no, they're not. They're not in fact, they stopped manipulating their currency when I started talking about it on the campaign. So they're not doing it anymore. All's good. I do want to remind people that 3 hours after the dinner at Mar-a-Lago between the president of China, Donald Trump, and Ivanka was sitting right there, she got 9 patents for her company that she had been wanting for quite some time. And Donald Trump, why, he got 38 patents that he had been fighting for over a decade to get. So anyone who voted for Donald Trump based on what he said, I think that if you offer him the right amount of money, he'll change exactly what he promised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there was his praising of Comey, with Hillary Clinton, and then the ridiculous reason, which was that he was mean to Hillary Clinton. So I was like, what? How
he was
what?
mean to crooked Hillary? How dare he? Yeah, you know what? James Comey was the nail in the coffin with all the fake news and all the Russian influence and all the bullshit going on all over, not only alternative and internet, but also into the mainstream. The nail on the coffin was that coming out 11 days before the election. That was it. Because it was again, and it was real and it was fresh, and it was James Comey, the director of the FBI, coming out and saying this. So absolutely, he did a bad thing. He did a really bad thing. But overall, when you look at his 4 years as director of the FBI, he's done a great job at keeping the FBI from being politicized, which is exactly what we want. We do not want the one of our biggest branches of intelligence being politicized. We don't want them to be in control of whatever party's in office at that time.
Right.
And the other problem is, who does the FBI answer to? They answer to the DOJ.
Mm-hmm.
So because Loretta Lynch had to recuse herself because Bill Clinton thought it would be a great idea to walk out onto the tarmac and go over to her plane and talk, about kids and whatever, James Comey had to come out and make that statement. And I say had to because he was being pressured by Republicans to say things. See, people don't remember. You have to go back and look at what we were doing at that time. And at that time, lots of Republicans on the Senate and the House Intelligence Committee, as well as Jason Chaffetz, who has since decided he doesn't want to run again in 2018, probably because he doesn't want to be yelled at a town hall anymore. These people were pressuring Comey to come up with something, to say something, because at the end of their investigation, even Trey Gowdy, who really wanted to stick it to Hillary, had to come out and say, we didn't find anything illegal. So if you look at what was going on and you look at the people that were swirling around Comey, he felt like he had to do that. I understand that. I don't agree with that. I think it sucks. I hope he feels mildly nauseous a lot for what he did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what Donald Trump in the moment, when his tiny little baby hands on the Twitter just couldn't satisfy, when he's screaming at the television and running around in his bathrobe all over the White House, when he just couldn't take it anymore, what he did is he freed Comey. Now Comey is a former director of the FBI. He's free to say whatever he wants.
Right.
As long as he doesn't reveal what he knows about classified information when he was FBI director. But remember, he doesn't know anything that's happening since the day he was fired. So he doesn't have any updates. He might be a good ally in the resistance against Donald Trump.
Well, he might be, but you might want to watch it too, because this is playing out like you said, like an episode of, The Sopranos. It's the unrealness is. I wouldn't be surprised if it just goes to the next level at any moment, because it keeps going to the next level surrealness and like, wow, this is really happening every day. So he might be a good ally, but he might have to watch himself.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really do agree.
And it's really funny because when I talk to people who are like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump, and I'm like, okay, why? And there's like almost every single one of them was convinced that Hillary would start World War III had she been elected. And now I ask him, like, you feel like you're safe from World War III now? No, they are not. They are not feeling safe from World War III at this point in time. So isn't that interesting? And then you add in, the Russian influence, Russian television, plus the alt-right influence in all of this. And what a mess. What a mess.
Yeah, so what we get is zombie care. What we get is Trump Care Zombie Edition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's in the hands of Turtleneck McConnell, which, of course, means 13 men are sitting down deciding what the fate of healthcare is in this country. 13 men. Mm-hmm. They couldn't get Joni Ernst. They couldn't get Susan Collins even to consult.
What do they care?
They do not.
Right.
They do not. A C-section is a pre-existing condition.
Wow.
There's talk of, well, no, this is actually irregular menstrual cycles is a pre-existing condition. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Really?
I think I'm getting an irregular menstrual cycle just thinking about it.
When I read the Trump Care, what I found most fascinating was they finally found a way to make being a woman a pre-existing condition. Just being a woman. Mm-hmm. Everything about being a woman.
Yeah, it's true.
41 million women as of 2013 had C-sections in this country. I had two. We all had pre-existing conditions. So what are we supposed to do? If you're overweight, you have a pre-existing condition. You have an irregular period, you have a pre-existing condition. I don't understand. Oh, wait a minute. Women are supposed to be back in the kitchen. Oh, right. We're not supposed to be working. We're not supposed to be earning anything. We're supposed to be taking care of the kids and the house and managing the bills.
Unless you're Ivanka Trump, then you can run something.
Only if Daddy creates it. I just found this out recently. Her company is basically a subsidiary of the Trump Organization. She didn't even create her own company. I actually tweeted to her and I said, at least as a business owner and a woman, I didn't have to use parental financing to start my company. Well,
that's a long tradition in their family, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. What's interesting is if you go back into his financial history, when his father passed away, all of his businesses started to die. Right before his father passed away, he lost $5 million at the tables at the Taj Mahal in New Jersey. But that couldn't save his son. He lost all of his casinos, every one of his businesses, the Trump airline, the Trump steaks, the Trump vodka. I'm sure there was Trump ties, the longer ones, not the ones that he sells now from China, the really long ones. All of those businesses failed. And what he ended up doing is owing so much money to the banks in the 1980s that the banks decided, instead of cutting him off and liquidating all of his stuff, they were going to let him keep his name and take everything else. And he would owe them and pay based on whatever income he could get from his name, because the brand name was still intact, even with all of the failures. So since then, he's only been able to sell his name. Now, what's interesting is he's got a lot of golf courses, especially at a time when golf courses aren't really that popular because, since 2008, we've not just us, not just the little people have been affected by the crash, but the big people got affected too. They lost money on the stock market. But somehow Donald Trump has all this money for golf courses. Well, his son, Eric Von Stupidface, tells a sports writer in 2014, we get all our money from Russia. Don't even worry about it. We got like $100 million credit. What?
Wow.
What? Oh, money laundering? I got a story for you. Donald Trump in 2005, I believe it was. Don't quote me on that one. I'm really bad at numbers. He sold a mansion in Palm Beach for just under $100 million. It was the most expensive house at the time that had ever been sold. And the house was never lived in. The house is now since being demolished. And the guy who bought it was Putin's third favorite oligarch. And he's known as the fertilizer king because he sells a lot of fertilizer. The house was never lived in. Now, if you want to launder money, you have to buy something big, really big, because you're not going to launder a couple hundred, $1,000. You're going to launder millions of dollars. Of course, a real estate sale would be a great way to do it. You buy the house and then you get the house demolished, or you sell the house and then you walk away with the actual physical cash. Oh, money laundering again. Let's see. Well, a month after Donald Trump was inaugurated, in the most watched inauguration period, he cut out of a deal that he had been working on for years in Azerbaijan. Now, I worked really hard to learn how to say that word because, unfortunately, I'm American and I'm ignorant about, things around the world. So in Azerbaijan, the Minister of Transportation happens to be really good friends with, who do you think? Give me a guess.
Trump.
Yes, but he also happens to be really good friends with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Oh,
the guys who fund terrorism all over the world.
Wow.
So, it gets better. I'm not even done. So they want to launder some money, because when you're a terrorist organization and you're trying to move lots of money, they sell armory. They also manufacture weapons and sell that too. But, it's kind of hard to get a bank account and, funnel money. You can't really take a Visa card or a check or anything because you're a terrorist organization. So you need a really large item to buy. And since Donald Trump had already sold that house in Palm Beach along, years before this, they decided that he would go in on a deal licensing his name to a building in Azerbaijan that doesn't have a road to get to it. In fact, there's no way to get there, but the building is standing there. Now, Donald Trump pulled out of this deal a month after he became president, but during the deal, as part of his compensation, he had already received $5 million. His partner in that deal was the transportation of the Azerbaijani transportation minister's cousin. So he had already partnered with that guy, got involved with the transportation secretary who moved in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, laundered the money, wipe it up really clean. And Donald Trump skeeves about $5 million off the top. Where did that money come from? Well, it had to have come from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard because nobody else put up any money. That not only is illegal, because see, in the United States, as a company working with other companies overseas, in fact, my company deals with this. There's a law that says you cannot do business with anyone who conducts any illegal activities using their business. And you have a due diligence, you have an obligation, a responsibility to do a check on your partner to make sure that they're squeaky clean. When asked about the background check they ran on their partner, the Transportation Azerbaijani secretary's cousin, the Trump organization couldn't provide any documentation, but they knew they did conduct that background check.
So, well, that leads me to some questions, but go ahead, finish the story.
I just wanted to finish with, and we were afraid Hillary Clinton was going to start World War III.
Yeah. And I still see the Hillary for prison bumper stickers around where I live.
I'm sorry.
I know. And the deplorable and proud stickers, they're all over the place too. I don't understand, but that whole thing leads me to the whole we got to take care of Iran rhetoric that was going through our news feeds a while back, not too far back. That's real interesting. So he's friends with people when he needs to be, and not friends with those same people when he doesn't need to be.
Yeah, he's friends with people he does business with. And
Right.
You can tell by what countries he doesn't, or he allows Muslims to come into this country. Because all the countries he doesn't have any properties or any real estate or financial interest in.
And not necessarily strangers to, say, beheading people in the street, for instance. That's
the
okay.
man congratulates Erdogan on his furtherance toward dictatorship. He says Kim Jong-un, and he calls him that gentleman because I don't think he can say Kim Jong-un. But anyway. He says he's a smart cookie because he murdered everybody and he's been able to keep the throne. Like, what is this? 1642?
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I wanted to ask you also, but before I forget, about the White House press secretary. What's going on there?
Well, they dragged him out of the bushes.
What happened with that?
Well, he got lost in the White House bushes, and some reporters found him, and he agreed to come out as long as they turned off their cameras and their lights. So, no, actually, it's really bad timing. Sean Spicer was due to serve his naval, not National Guard. I cannot remember. My father did this for years with the Air Force, and after you get out and you have to serve, what is that called?
Reserves.
I forgot.
The reserves.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. He had to serve his week of reserves for the Navy, so that's why we've seen Sarah Huckabee. But he's back. I think he did the press briefing on Friday. But I feel bad for Sean. I do, because before he did this, he had built himself a really good reputation in Washington as being a good guy, an honest guy, and he and everybody else, and except for Propaganda Barbie, Kellyanne Conjob, I do not feel bad for that woman at all. And Anderson Cooper can roll his eyes until they roll into the back of his head and never come out. It is not sexist. That's what we all do. That's what we do whenever she shows up on television. We're all doing it. It's just we're not on camera, so she can't see it. But, Sean Spicer is just, and a lot of these people there, they act like this is never going to end. It's either going to end in hilarious impeachment, or we're going to have to deal with this monkey for another 4 years, or for the entire 4 years. Okay. I don't think he'll get voted back in. No. Unless Russia really hacks into the voting this time. I don't see it happening. But they act like there's never an end to this. Like, there's not life after Trump. We all know these people. We all know their names. We all know what their voices sound like, except for Jared Kushner, because he never speaks in public. But we all know these people. And the way that this is going, they're all complicit in what seems to be a slow-moving coup. Now, that might be because Donald Trump eats too much KFC, but it is a coup.
Yeah.
And they're all complicit in it. So I don't think they're going to have any kind of career outside of Fox News after this is over.
Right. Yeah, it's a soft coup for sure, especially when you look at who he's appointing to what agency. So he picks the one person who's stood up and basically said, I want to end this agency. And they're the ones who are going to be put in charge of the agency that they said they wanted to end. Pretty much.
Yeah, Rick Perry. That's it. Rick Perry in charge of the nukes. I mean,
Lord,
he didn't even know. He didn't even know that the Department of Energy is responsible for the nukes. Yeah. He was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Or the guy who sued the EPA 19 times. Mm-hmm. And we know from FOIA disclosures, when he was Attorney General, that he worked with different energy companies like Devon Energy and sued based on Devon Energy. Like, they would write something and he would just stick his name on it and mail it off to the government while he was AG. I mean, this is ridiculous. And then this guy is running it. Betsy DeVos. Mm-hmm. I laughed when I heard her getting booed at that commencement speech this week. Mm-hmm. It was almost as good as Paul Ryan getting told to freak off. That was my highlight.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Paul Ryan be cornered before and asked about, like, you cannot be a devout Christian and be totally into Ayn Rand at the same time. Like, you gotta choose. Like, I think it was a priest or something who went up and said that to him. So, which is it, buddy? And he ran away.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
When Donald Trump signed that executive order giving the churches political speech, among other things, a large consortium of Catholic and evangelical Christian leaders came out against it. No, that's just not part of this country. You can have your church, but you can't be involved in my government.
Yeah. Founding
fathers knew something. They were smart. I think we should stick with what they said.
Separation of church and state. And that whole downward spiral has been happening for a long time too. The right, and in particular the fundamentalist Christian right, has been putting their operatives, so to speak, into the government for a very long time. And as we've talked about before, their main objective is to turn this into a Christian only nation, and the laws reflect biblical law, whatever that's supposed to mean.
Watch The Handmaiden.
Yeah, right. And look at what's happening to healthcare. It's about punishing women for being women.
It's about
you're
punishing
a walking pre-existing condition. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, it's not always your fault. Sometimes it is, let's be honest. I mean, you know who you are and you don't have to raise your hand. Nobody can see you. But other times it's not. And we shouldn't base your worth on what you have in your wallet. We just shouldn't. Because we see what kind of disgusting people have money. This fake feminism, going back to Ivanka, this fake feminism, it's a brand that she started in 2014, and she launched this ad campaign, and she had a bunch of videos put up on YouTube. It's all part of this. I need to sell you stuff because women love to buy clothes. What does she say? Her brand is about women who work, right? And women who are successful. None of the women that she quoted got their business or got their anything from their parents. All of the women that she quoted actually worked and became successful on their own merit. And she even had, did you see this in the book? She had the audacity to quote Toni Morrison out of Beloved. This quote is about slavery, and she used it to describe how you might be a slave to time.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, these people are so disconnected. They don't even live in our reality. And all they care about is the bottom line. Look, I don't blame the Bobbsey twins and Ivanka for wanting to get this far. This man is 70 years old. He's not going to live forever. But they're going to be alive, and their children are. And they want to make sure that they have the most success possible to get the most money possible. From that standpoint, I understand. The way they're going about this is so shockingly egregious that it's hilarious. It's like a comedy skit. It's like non-reality meets reality. And everybody is just exhausted. It's been, 110 days or a little bit over that? And I don't know about you, but I feel like I've aged at least a decade. I have more gray hair since January 20th than I did before January 19th.
I probably do too, but nobody's going to know about it. Well, they will now, but it's not going to show while I'm walking down the street. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, hair did.
Oh yeah, my hairdresser loves me because I've been seeing her a lot more lately.
Yeah, I am truly scared. I will admit that. And there are some other disturbing things happening in the environment that are just sort of, end times type of things. We still have Fukushima leaking. And out there where you're at, I think is it Washington or Oregon State? There's a pretty bad nuclear site out that way that I was reading about. So all this scary stuff, plus whatever, thin sort of rickety type of restrictions we had on environmental destruction are removed now. So pollute the waters, blow up mountaintops, do whatever you need to make a fast buck. And that's where we're at. So, but we also...
If you want to go see any national monuments, I suggest you do it this summer, because Donald Trump just opened up all of our national monuments to drilling and logging and fracking and whatever else they want to do to it.
Yeah, so they're going to go frack the Yellowstone.
Yeah, the caldera. They would. Those dumb idiots, they probably would. They would frack a caldera and go, oops.
What have we done? Boom. What have we done? Yeah. But at the same time, we also have a resurgence of environmental protection. People who are willing to live in trees, for instance, to stop a pipeline. That's what's going on in Pennsylvania right now. There's a lot of people on the other end of the spectrum too, who all of this awakening is causing some major organization to go on, and also some co-optation of that organization as well, as will always happen.
Yes, but I'm really impressed with us because after we got down and we realized we were going to be living in Trumplandia for at least 4 years, we decided to revolt. We decided to resist. It ramped up. We saw within the span of 2 weekends back to back. We saw the March for the Climate and the March for Science.
Mm-hmm.
We have troves of information because we see that the climate change information on government websites is disappearing, right?
Right.
So those guys back a couple of months ago when they started archiving this, I remember reports were like, oh, they're blowing this out of proportion. No, they were correct. So because those scientists are so smart and because they saved all that information, it's being stored on data archives right now so that we will be able to access it and have it. So we will be able to see what kind of effects whatever Donald Trump is doing right now has over the course of the next year or 2 years, and we'll be able to come out with information showing the damage. This is obviously something that we have to do, unfortunately, but thank goodness that these people are doing it. And again, I think it goes back to what we're seeing in the town halls. It's not on TV enough, unfortunately, but if you search it on YouTube, town halls, you'll find massive amounts of videos of people just obliterating these GOP members who voted for the Trump care, who have been complacent in allowing Donald Trump to do what he wants. And now, because we are all so hyper aware that this man has been obstructing the investigations into Russia, people are coming out in the town halls and screaming at their representatives to do something about this. So, and on all spectrums, it's not just certain issues like the Women's March or science or even environmentalism. It's simply people are demanding, ironically, and never more justified, that we take our country back. They can't have it. There's a reason why we don't. There's a reason why in Louisiana they're taking down statues of Confederate soldiers and monuments to these monsters. Mm-hmm. Because we should be ashamed. When you go to Germany, they apologize. They're still apologizing. In fact, in Germany, when you are in high school, you have to take a course, and you can't graduate unless you take it, teaching you what happened during from the 1920s to the late 40s in Germany, teaching their youth to never let this happen again. I think that's absolutely responsible. Why don't we do that about the Civil War here? Why don't we do that about the failed Reconstructionism of the South? Why don't we do anything like that? So I understand that they feel left behind and they feel forgotten. It's for good reason. Because the way that they think is bad, and it should be forgotten. It should just be forgotten. You don't treat human beings differently based on anything cursory that you can see, anything superficial that you can see. That's not who they are. You do so based on their merits. You shouldn't tell a woman that she's not allowed to vote. We didn't start voting in this country until a couple of generations ago, until the 1920s. That's ridiculous. Women were afraid to get divorced just 40 years ago, and they were shunned for doing so.
Right. Now it's almost like a rite of passage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to go backward. Black lives actually do matter. And the reason why we have to keep saying it is because some people think that they don't. Like our criminal justice system and the people who run it. Like the evil Keebler elf in the DOJ right now saying that we should go for maximum sentencing in every case possible. Why don't we go after, if we're so upset about the opioid addiction, why don't we go after the pharmaceutical companies?
Right.
It's not marijuana. It's opiates. Why don't we go after them? That is where the drug war lies. That's where it's always lies. Millions
and millions more people die from pharmaceuticals every year than all drugs combined. And cannabis has never killed anyone in the entire history of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and right now, more working class white males are dying from addiction to opiates and alcohol in the last 5 years. So I don't think that, stop and frisk just because you're brown or black is working, because they're stopping and frisking the wrong people.
Right.
They don't have the drugs, stop the white guy on the street. He's probably got him.
Right. And that, talking about big pharma brings us to the FDA. Trump was saying a lot of things during the election that were, making the people who are hip to vaccination being an issue we should talk about, and that it gets shut down. And you and I both see beyond this left and right divide when it comes to vaccinations. But Trump hasn't done a damn thing with the FDA, not one thing. So
no,
that's
because he sat down with the pharmaceutical companies, and then all of a sudden he understood what the problem was, right? Deregulation.
Wow. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. You know why the FDA was created, boys and girls? Because the snake oil salesman would go from town to town killing people, and nobody could do a damn thing about it. This was in the 1920s. So the FDA was founded to stop those people. Now those people are still out there, except the FDA has had their hands tied for decades. They can't do anything until someone dies. Remember Fen-Phen? So because of the way the FDA is structured, through lots and lots of tweaks by legislation being passed and different Congresses going through, the FDA can only do something when people die. That benefits the pharmaceutical and, any other product that you use. Not only that, but thanks to Orrin Hatch in the 80s and Mel Gibson for doing a hilarious commercial with jackbooted thugs and a bottle of vitamin C. Go watch it. It's on YouTube. It's friggin' hilarious. But thanks to Orrin Hatch and that commercial, the natural supplements industry is not regulated. And when you do independent testing on some of the products that you think you're taking for supplemental reasons because it's healthy, you read something on the internet, you might want to have that tested. Now, I know it's about $2,000 to have a full spectrum test done, but you might want to maybe get some friends in on it and go have it done, because you'll be surprised by the results. There are toxic things inside these supplements, and they're being sold on shelves all over the country. And because it's natural supplement and everybody hates Big Pharma, you take it. Well, isn't that the pot calling the kettle?
Yeah, so they're not protecting us from anything at all.
No, the lawmakers in this country have worked it so that people who make under about $250,000 a year really don't have much say in anything, even in the products and the durability and the safety of their products.
Yeah. Oh, wow, we're already up. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
Stick around.